This is the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at alansamuelsdcj.com. The Sikkim Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Brooke Bednarz and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome into this week's Sikkim Podcast. We're glad you're with us. The Sikkim Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Hey, I want to remind you to make sure you subscribe to the Sikkim Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Catch us each week for a new Sikkim Podcast. John Morris alongside Brooke Bednarz from Baylor Vision, and pleased to be joined this week by Baylor Football assistant coach Shawn Bell. Shawn's been around for a while, quarterback here at Baylor, grew up in Central Texas, and now on the coaching staff going into his third year coaching here at Baylor. And Shawn, welcome to you. We appreciate you being on our podcast this week.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. You look good wearing that headset. It's kind of natural for you. So you've done this before. You have, absolutely. Well, glad you're with us. Let's start, maybe not from the very beginning, but back near the beginning. You grew up here in Central Texas, China Spring High School, played for your dad at China Spring. What was that like growing up here and then from there ending up here at Baylor as a quarterback?
Well, it was a special opportunity for me, growing up. I moved around quite a bit as a elementary school kid, but then when I hit middle school, I came as a seventh grader to China Spring and then finished out the rest of my career there. And, I always knew of Baylor and about Baylor, but really when I moved to China Spring, it really kind of grounded me in the fact that I wanted to go to Baylor. I got a chance at that time to meet Kevin Still, who was actually living in China Spring, and ran into him many, many times. And he, everything he was saying, everything I saw at this campus and what it stood for, it was a great opportunity for me to stay close to home. So it was something I dreamed of and had the opportunity to do. And another dream of mine was to coach here, so I'm having that opportunity as well now. So
early on, elementary school, you moved around. I guess your dad was coaching in different places.
Yeah, so I was born in Bell County. He was a clean kangaroo, and then he went from there to Clifton, and his first head job was in '91 at Rosebud Lot. So he spent a year at Rosebud Lot, and then we went back to Clifton, then Lampasas, and then finished at China Spring. And obviously Dad, Mom, and my brother are all there now. And so it's kind of neat, being back here. I live in China Spring, live 2 blocks from my folks, and my brother's the head coach, and so it's a really neat opportunity for my family.
You got such deep roots there at China Spring, but I remember Clifton. I mean, y'all were the first family of Clifton, really, for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That was neat. The neat thing about Clifton was, my dad was an assistant there. Then he came back as a head coach later. And we actually had a tragedy there. My sister was killed in an accident there. And so Clifton's been a community to my family that's meant the world. And then you fast forward, that was where I had my first start as a head football coach. And that was my first head job at Clifton, and where my wife's from. So Clifton, along with China Spring, are places that are very close to me and my family. So
I was about to say, didn't you know Haley when you guys were
Yeah. So Haley,
younger?
Haley's older brother, Zach, he's the middle brother. She also has an oldest brother, TJ, that actually pole vaulted at Baylor. But Zach and I played Little League baseball together. So her dad, Tom, and Zach, and my dad, we all played Little League. They both coached. And so we we played together. We went against each other. But Haley was always a little bit younger. She was 3. I've got videos of her and my little sister doing cheerleaders on Friday night, doing cheerleader stuff at Friday night football games. And so we've known each other our entire lives. And went on to college. She went to A&M. I came to Baylor, and then after college, kind of met up actually at a Baylor football game when RG3 and those guys beat A&M at Floyd Casey. I think it was the last time at A&M Baylor played at Floyd Casey's when Haley and I met back up and started dating, and I guess the rest is history. So,
yeah. Very good. And we're not far into the podcast to mention Haley's name.
Yes.
Who is the better athlete between you and Haley? She ran track at A&M.
This is a common,
I
would say argument more than a conversation. More of between not just Haley but my dad, my brother. But I think Haley, she was a tremendous athlete. She won state 3 years, should have won it 4. She actually got robbed her freshman year in pole vault on a judgment call, but she went on to be a track athlete at A&M, did the pole vault, and then they talked her into doing the javelin. And she was a really good volleyball player, basketball player, track athlete. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say she was the better athlete.
Smart man.
Very good. Good move. You mentioned your sister and the tragedy there in Clifton. I think folks around there certainly know about that. But it was a tragedy. I mean, that's the only way to put it for you and your family to go through.
Yeah, so I was in 3rd grade. My brother was just coming on to his 2nd birthday, and they were out in the backyard and actually going to get a baseball glove. And I think she was going to be in kindergarten in August, and she somehow my dad had a truck that was a manual truck and started driving down the hill. We lived on this real steep hill and went down the hill and just a tragic accident where it ran her over. We were inside, they were outside, so we don't know if she was chasing the car, fell out of the car or what, but we know obviously that it did run over and she was kind of killed on impact. And I tell you, you kind of learn more about yourself through tragedy and times like that, and that was an opportunity where I just looked at my parents. I was in 3rd grade. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act, and I looked at them and the strength that they had in their faith and the support that we had in that community and the way they just surrounded us. And I just really took a lot from it. I think that tragedy obviously kind of shaped our family. It really grew us closer together. And, you always look for the bright spots. I don't know if there's ever a bright spot in a tragedy like that, but one of the things it did do was kind of solidify who we were as a family. And so, like I said earlier in the podcast, Clifton community was unbelievable to me and my family, and we definitely couldn't have gone through it without them. So.
Yeah. Thanks for telling that.
Yeah.
And your mom and dad, Mark and Becca, just so so grounded in your faith that had to help. I mean, and it really showed through that time.
I think so. And you see reports and you see studies of parents who lose children, and the impact it has on their relationship and the divorce rate and all that stuff. And I mean, it's just such a testament to them and their faith and their belief that in God and the strength that He provided for them, and it provided to me. And so I think that shaped them and then ultimately shaped me who I am. So.
Well, and you now, on the flip side, are a father.
Right.
You have little ones. Your twin boys, now they're doing great, but when they were born, things were a little critical there, were they not?
Yeah. So when Haley was pregnant with the twins, that she had to go see a high-risk specialist, and she was about 18 weeks pregnant, and she came driving out to practice. I was a head coach at Magnolia West, and she very rarely came out there, and I could just see from a distance that something was wrong. So I ran over to the car, and we were told at 18 weeks that we were going to lose the twins. And so I spent the next couple nights just not sleeping, researching, and found this doctor. Luckily, we were in Magnolia, so we had the best medical care in Houston you could find, and found the doctor to kind of do an emergency procedure. And she went on bed rest from 18 weeks to 27 weeks and held them in. And so at 27 weeks, they were born. We thought at that time they were going to make it to 30, 31, and we're blessed for 27. But, yeah, they were born at 2 pounds, 10 ounces. I could take my wedding ring up and down Cannon's arms and legs. I could just slide it right up and down their arms and legs. And Cannon had probably the worst of it. He was closest to coming out at 18 weeks, and he had 2 brain surgeries, a lung surgery, a heart surgery early in life, and really just had to battle. And then Braxton, on the other hand, he had it pretty easy, and I'll tell you one, probably the most, people talk about miracles. There's a miracle in this, that there's probably 10 things I could tell you that just make you not believe. But Braxton needed a heart surgery, so they spent probably 30 days apart in 2 different hospitals, and Braxton needed a heart surgery, and they were going to transport Braxton to where Cannon was because he had a brain surgery there. And the night before the heart surgery, they let him sleep in the pods together. Haley held him, and this was all new to me. I didn't have much knowledge of NICU this or NICU that. And anyway, long story short, the next morning they woke up to do the heart surgery, and Braxton's heart was healed. And you always hear the power of mother. So Haley held her, and then the power of twins being together. And so Braxton the next morning woke up. They remeasured the hole in his heart, and it was completely healed. And so just a lot of just like Lindsay. The tragedy of Lindsay and my sister kind of shaped, my family. I think that this blessing, I guess, that in tough time that we went through with Cannon and Braxton have shaped Haley and our family. So it was a road, but it was definitely well worth it. And they're doing great. You wouldn't even know anything now. So very blessed.
That's it. Those guys are out of practice a lot. They're running around. They got a lot of energy.
Right.
A lot of energy.
Lots of energy. See it on that Instagram takeover. Yeah. Running routes, and they've been getting their PE in. That's for sure.
There's no question about that. Haley, first week of homeschool, Haley texted the principal and asked if she could send them to the principal. She was having trouble with them. But yeah, they're fun. They're blessed.
And let's don't leave Sadie out.
Yeah,
Sadie's your daughter.
Sadie's my princess.
Yeah.
So she just turned. She had her birthday in February, so we celebrated that, and she just turned 3, and so she's a blessing as well. She's a joy, and she's a blast to be around. She, just like Haley, she might be the best athlete in the family.
Oh, so, wow. Okay.
The brothers
no
better watch
there.
out.
Yeah, that's right.
You mentioned Magnolia West in there. You were a high school coach for 10 years. Tell us about your stops in that journey.
Yeah, so I had a chance to, I guess it probably all starts because I had a chance to play in Canada. If I wouldn't have gone to Canada, I probably would have tried a GA or something out of college. But I went up there and came back in the middle of summer, needed a job, and started at Round Rock Stony Point, got a great start there. Went to China Spring to be offensive coordinator, and but the real reason was to coach my brother. So my dad was the head coach, I was calling plays, and my brother was the quarterback, and what an opportunity. And then, like I said earlier, went to Clifton, was only there a year, had planned on staying there a while, and then Dr. Todd Stevens allowed me an opportunity for 6 years to be the head football coach at Magnolia West High School right outside of Houston. So I was there 6 years and then finished it back in Round Rock at Cedar Ridge High School before I joined Baylor. And so, been around some unbelievable coaches, great programs, some of the best times of my life, and just some really good people I've come in contact with.
We've talked about, your time at China Spring and how he called you the first family of Clifton. I think that's pretty safe to say right now in China Spring.
True,
with the Bell name is well known. But you just mentioned coaching Brian, your younger brother. What was that dynamic like? You go from brothers and now all of a sudden he's got two coaches, dad and brother.
Right. The neat thing about Brian and my relationship is we're 8 years apart. And so we never really fought growing up. We never, I was in high school and he was in elementary school, and so there's such a separation there of where we never really clashed. So when I had the opportunity to come back and coach him, I think it was something that we both just kind of cherished. I was hard on him. I know my dad was equally hard on myself and my brother, but he did say that many a times. He called me Dad every now and then. He said, "Thanks, Dad," instead of coach or anything like that. I think he took light with it as well, but it was a great experience, and that's why I did it. When do you have those opportunities? And I knew my dad's career was, not quite ready to be over, but getting towards the end, and I was kind of getting started to where hopefully I was going to be a head coach. So I kind of knew that was probably the only time on the road that would ever happen. So it was a blessing.
Yeah, what a unique opportunity, for your dad to be there, you to be there, and Brian to be there. I mean, everything sort of aligned for you guys to be there at the same school at the same time.
Right. It was a great year, and we had good players, too. We had Mike Hicks, who came on to Baylor, and he was a phenomenal high school football player, probably the best high school football player in China Spring history. So it was a great year and one I always cherish. So I look back on my career, that was probably my favorite year of coaching.
Well, now it's come full circle, and you're not at China Spring, but you're right down the road here at Baylor.
Right. So my children, we laugh about it. I grew up on the sidelines on Friday night to where I spent, every day at the field house with Dad, and Thursday night I went to games, Friday night I went to games, and that was one of the things when I took this job and came to college. I thought, man, I don't want my kids to miss that. And they've had the opportunity, obviously, to be around here with Coach Rule and now Coach Aranda, and they're awesome. But they also have the opportunity with my brother to do things that that they would do if I was still at high school. So Thursday nights they'll go to JV or middle school games, and Friday nights they're at every Cougar game supporting B. And so it's great for them as much as anybody. And so I don't know many grandparents that have their grandchildren 2 blocks down the road either. So I'm sure grandma and grandpa aren't too upset.
And Brian, who by the way is a big fan, supporter of the Baylor Bear Foundation, is doing really well.
Yeah,
as the head coach there at China Spring.
He is. I'm proud of him. He he went on and had a great career at Sam Houston, played for 2 national championships, and and when I was at Magnolia West, he actually came after Sam and worked with me for a year. So that was another enjoyable time. And that was when the boys were just born, and so it was a neat time again for our family. But he's a tremendous coach, tremendous person, tremendous friend, and like I said, it's been neat for me because so many people, brothers, grow up banging heads, and we didn't. I've just been able to support him and love him, and vice versa. So we have a really good relationship.
Well, and how great it is for you now to still be by family. That it's the exact same reason that, or I'm reading your own words here on your Wednesday post that came out last week from the Baylor Football account. But just mentioning that you got to go to college, play right here, D1, but have your family still just right down the road and have them, who Brian is 8 years younger than you, and your parents still be able to go to all those games.
Mm-hmm. And kind of I tweet about it and different things, and we talk about it as a organization, but the priorities of faith, family, and football. Obviously faith is the most important thing in my family and my life, and then family. And so for me, every decision I make and everything I do is for my family. So we're really, really close, and it's a blessing because not just my family, but Haley's parents are 30 minutes down the road. So I don't know many college football coaches that probably have it better than I do right now. So very blessed.
What could you, in a capsule, say that you learned from your dad about coaching?
Oh, man.
That's why I said a capsule, because I know there's a lot.
I learned a ton. And I think, my dad was such a fiery individual to where I think, he maybe thought if you saw him from a distance, you would think he was one way, when in fact it was a complete opposite. He just was so competitive that he all the time on Friday nights he was just a different person, and so he sometimes would get a negative light because of that. Nobody really knew the care and the love and the type of person he really was to our team and our children and different things. And probably what I learned the most was that you're going to have to make tough decisions, but obviously, when you make those decisions, as long as that's what's best for the student athlete, that's what's best. And he told me a long time ago, he said, Shawn, let me tell you something. And I think every parent and every coach that hears this will agree to this, and somebody will probably steal it. But he said, everybody's rational till it comes to their own children, and I think about my life, I'm like, I am rational till it comes to three people, Cannon, Braxton, and Sadie. When it comes to them, he said, so you can't ever hold, parents are going to do some irrational things at times, and it's just because it's their children. So I never hold that against them. So that was something that's always stuck with me my whole coaching career. So
that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Relationships, community, home. Now more than ever, these are the things that we're holding fast to. Home should restore us from today and ready us for tomorrow. It's where stories are told and relationships are forged. Within those walls, memories are made, laughter is shared, and family is gathered around the table. For these reasons, we believe in home, and that right now, there is no better place to be. If you and your family are looking to buy or sell a home, head over to MagnoliaRealty.com. Magnolia is a proud sponsor of Baylor Athletics.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
You're listening to the Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Here again are Brooke Bednarz and John Morris.
We're visiting with Shawn Bell, Baylor assistant football coach, working with the offensive line. We'll get to today's where you're doing what you're doing now. Let's go back to your playing days here at Baylor. What was the recruiting process like? You talked about growing up here, knowing Baylor, being around Baylor, having gone to Baylor games. What was it like when you actually got the offer and ended up here at Baylor?
Well, like I said, I didn't live as close to Waco. I lived kind of around Waco, so I actually grew up. My dad was an Aggie. I grew up an Aggie, so I wanted to be an Aggie. And I remember, like yesterday, I was a freshman in high school when I walked by Kevin Still, and he said, and Baylor was playing A&M, and he was at his son's football game in China Spring, and my best friend at the time, for whatever reason, said, Shawn's an Aggie or whatever, and he said, well, we'll see when the scholarships come around. And so, I'll never forget walking down the steps at Floyd Casey when I had that offer. The first person I called was my dad, and it was just a joy because, like I said, it wasn't just about the opportunity to play big-time football, but to do it so close to home. My parents didn't miss a single game, and so I was recruited under Coach Steele and actually Greg Meyer, who's a good friend still to this day and a guy that I love and respect a whole lot. And so those two guys had a lot to do with why I was here, along with obviously Baylor University. But I was thinking the other day, it was such a unique experience because I was recruited under Coach Meyer, and then by the time I got here, Coach Baldwin was our offensive coordinator, and then then Brent Peace, and so I had 4 different coordinators almost in that amount of time. So got to come in contact with a lot of coaches, which developed me who I am now. So. Well,
you kind of left your mark there real casually on the record book. 6th most all-time with 5,666 career yards and 38 career touchdowns. But then someone we all know pretty well comes in and breaks your records. Mr. Charlie Brewer. How do you feel about that?
Well, don't think for a second. Every time that pops up, there'll be something show up on Twitter or something where it says, Charlie's a touchdown away from passing me, which I'm further down, obviously, with RG3 and Nick and everybody. But, every time my name shows up and it's a little bit above Charlie, he'll send it to me. He's quick to remind me, and he I've been proud of him and the hard work he's put in and the benefits he's reaping now because he's worked hard for it. But, yeah, that's pretty neat because I'm telling you, him or Garrett McGuire, one of those two guys is always sending me something if my name pops up. So it's a kind of a challenge between us.
Let's go back to 2004. Talked about Baylor and A&M and your family's background and your dad's background with A&M, and of course Haley, A&M grad as well. Listen to this. I know you've heard this before, Shawn, maybe more than once. Brooke, I'm not sure if you have. Listen to this.
3 receivers left, 2 right. Shawn Bell has the snap. Looking. No! Touchdown! Win! Oh, baby! They have knocked off the Aggies for the first time since 1985. The fans are storming onto the field. Shawn Bell hits Dominique Ziegler, and the Bears win over A&M 35-34 in overtime.
Number one, maybe the worst call in Baylor football history, but number two, maybe the best call, because if you're coming at it from a Baylor perspective, even though JJ and I are just screaming, you know something good happened.
Right.
So you've heard that in your kids, right?
Yeah.
So do they have it memorized?
It's funny you say that. We saw you the other day, and I almost stopped you because Haley's had Cannon and Braxton watch that before, and they were driving in the car, and they were watching it in their headphones. And Haley couldn't hear him, I think, and they just kept going, "Whoa, baby!" that's what you said at that time. So every time they see you, every time they hear your voice,
I'm "Whoa, baby."
They always, "Whoa, baby!" But yeah, so that was they've actually seen that. I've never made them watch it, but I think Cannon eats, sleeps, and breathes Baylor football. So that boy loves watching that video.
Yeah.
And anytime he can watch anything, he's watching the hype videos that our creative team does such a great job of. But he loves that stuff. It's neat.
So that was October of 2004, win over A&M, first win over A&M in 19 years. They were ranked 16th at the time. That was a huge play, but a huge moment for you and for the program.
Yeah, it was. And there's so much that goes into that story, and from my dad and my desire to beat A&M, and the week before I kind of cost us the game at Iowa State. I fumbled for 6 the other way. I got hit blindsided, and so it was kind of a rocky road for us at that season. And so for that to happen that night, it was a special night for me and my family, obviously. But I think it was a building stone for this program. I think if you look back on it, that was something that propelled that generation, and then ultimately got obviously the next staff in and doing what they did, and then now we are. So it was a special night, a fun night. So
one of my first thoughts was, kind of everything after everything settled down, was about you and your dad. Knowing his history, A&M, proud Aggie,
right,
as he should be. But I know he was proud for you, even though it came at the expense of A&M that night.
Yeah. So when A&M, when I committed to Baylor, A&M still kind of talked to me and stuff. And Dad actually went in and took his A&M ring off. He's probably the only Aggie I've ever met that doesn't wear his Aggie ring. And so he went when I committed to Baylor, took it off and hadn't worn it since. And I remember that night, when I threw the touchdown, everybody's sprinting this way or that way, but somehow he got on the field first. I don't know how he did it, but he hurdled the railing, and he was one of the first people I saw, and just a special moment for us. So very neat.
Boy. What does it mean for you to have those memories that now you're sharing with your kids, and whoa, baby, this and that, all those fun things, but to now be here helping create those memories for the players that you're working with right now?
I never really said this much, but one thing, I wanted to come to Baylor for a lot of different reasons, but one of the other reasons was I wanted to be the guy that changed it. Baylor was not successful up until the time I got here, and I wanted to be known as the guy that changed this football program, that got us to a bowl game, that won championships. And, I didn't have a chance to really do that. And so to be here now and to be a part of it, that's still my same goal, but just in a different capacity. So, to play in the Sugar Bowl last year and play for a Big 12 championship. And so I'm hoping that as a coach I can help, this program continue to rise and be special. And that was my goal as a player, and I didn't fully reach it. And so I think that still drives me every second of every day to be a part of that and to help build that. So, yeah.
It was how tough a call was it for you to leave high school coaching? You were a head coach when Coach Rule made contact with you, and I'm guessing David Wetzel was a part of that initial contact also. How you had to weigh a lot of things before you accepted the job to come back here.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing was what was at Cedar Ridge. I knew that it was a great program, great people, great student athletes, and I loved it. It was a great place. And, I took a job for less money and off the field position, kind of taking a chance. And so it was definitely, a chance. And, Jeremiah Dickey and I were laughing about it the other day, 4 years ago, just, how lucky I've been that my career's propelled. And so I kind of took a chance. It was a tough decision. And it was because not only those guys, but also the coaches. I was at Cedar Ridge for a year. So I brought my whole new staff in and guys that usually when you leave a job in high school, you can take people with you. Well, obviously jumping to Baylor, didn't really have that opportunity. So I was worried about them and ultimately the student athletes there at Cedar Ridge. But I think the good Lord's blessed me, and that was definitely the right decision.
And part of really the smartest moves I think Coach Rule made starting out was hiring David Wetzel and you and then Joey McGuire to get those Texas ties. And you and Coach McGuire, everybody, but you and Coach McGuire have maybe interesting is the right word. Interesting working relationship between you two.
Yeah, we do. And that was a neat time because Coach Wetzel was already hired, and Joey and I are talking, and I'm talking to David. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? We're all kind of talking through it, and I've got a chance to know him a little bit through the high school ranks, but he's just a tremendous friend along with Coach Wetzel. Just two people that I think Baylor would be proud of how they act every day and who they are every day and what they represent. And then Joey's something else. He when I first met Joey in high school, I thought there's no way this guy's like this every day. There's no way. He's bouncing off the there's got to be times he turns the switch off, and there's not. I mean, he's like this every day. We were over at his house. I took the kids swimming, I guess just Sunday, 2 days ago, and so just great friends, great family, and just people that we're really close with and really, really enjoy being around.
He's Uncle JoJo, right?
JoJo, yeah,
to your
JoJo,
kids.
yeah.
So it shows how close. And y'all really do have great rapport between each other, banter back and forth, bright light, all of that good stuff. Yeah. Between each trying to get the upper hand on the other.
Yeah, it was unique last year. The first 2 years we sat next to each other every day. I mean, we sat next to each other, and he coached the tight ends, and I took over the offensive line, so we worked next to each other. Well, last year he was D-line and I was O-line, so it was the first time we've ever really gone against each other. So there were some times out there were one-on-ones or some compete drills that we're going back and forth. But he's a tremendous competitor and just a fun guy to be around every day.
If you need a trailer, Flat Rock Trailers has got you covered. From light-duty single-axle utility trailers to the Big Tex tandem duals. We also carry a full line of enclosed cargo trailers. Need a motorcycle trailer? We've got them. Need a dump trailer? We've got the largest selection in the state. Oil field trailers? We carry a full line of Big Tex trailers to handle all your needs. Trailer repairs? We repair all makes and models. We'll even rent you a trailer if you need to use one for a day. Flat Rock Trailers, your #1 source for all your trailer needs. Find us at flatrocktrailers.com.
Relationships, community, home. Now more than ever, these are the things that we're holding fast to. Home should restore us from today and ready us for tomorrow. It's where stories are told and relationships are forged. Within those walls, memories are made, laughter is shared, and family is gathered around the table. For these reasons, we believe in home, and that right now, there is no better place to be. If you and your family are looking to buy or sell a home, head over to magnoliarealty.com. Magnolia is a proud sponsor of Baylor Athletics.
You mentioned, John, bringing in those Texas ties, bringing in you three. How have you, with your experience in high school coaching, your father, you guys moved around, et cetera, you have lots of ties everywhere. How have you seen that relate to the recruiting aspect that you do now?
I think it relates kind of in two ways. I think, like you said, I was able. The only place that I really wasn't at was DFW. I was in Central Texas. I was in Austin area. I was in the Houston area, and so DFW area, and I guess maybe South Texas I didn't spend as much time with, but I've had relations everywhere in my short time in high school. So that was a benefit, obviously, the relationship with the coaches. But I think, too, just the way you understand how a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid thinks. Sometimes if you've only been in college, you don't understand, what they're dealing with on a daily basis or how it really works with that school day. And so I think the familiarity of what it looks like as a high school student athlete has made me a better recruiter because I went that route. I really understand what their day looks like on a daily basis, what they're going through, what they're thinking, because that's who I coached for 10 years. That's who I was around every second of my 10 years in high school. So I think those relationships with high school coaches and that have probably been the biggest benefit.
You came here as an offensive analyst, like you mentioned, not even on the field coaching. Offensive line coach last year, now tight ends coach this year. How about moving positions, moving jobs, responsibilities within the staff?
Well, I think first, the last 2 years have been special. I know it's something that I think I took on and was kind of would never coach the offensive line. It was a unique experience for me, but I had two mentors that could really help me through that process, and I learned so much, and it's gonna, I think, really help my career in the future. I think it'll really help me and be a better coach. But I'm really excited to be with the tight ends. I think that we've got a room of guys that are kind of coming into their own. They've been young guys that are now kind of growing up, and we expect big things from them this year. But also, I'm really excited to be involved with the passing game. For the last 2 years, I've only been involved with pass protection and run game, and they're down there throwing 7-on-7, and I don't even get to see what's going on over there. So as a tight end coach, you get involved in the run game, the pass game, special teams. So it'll allow me to really be more involved in the whole game, and I'm really excited about it.
before we get to the tight ends or more about the tight ends, go back to the offensive line, working with George DeLeon and Josh Cochran with you as well. I mean, guys, that was pretty good information source for you coaching the O-line for the first time.
Absolutely, and those are two guys that I would consider great friends. You know, Coach DeLeon's taught me more, and he's taught me so much about offensive line, but more about what it means to be a coach and who that is and what that looks like than anything. And, you know, Josh was a guy that was, you know, a GA, I guess, at the time, but really just a guy I could lean on and very, you know, guy that's a genuinely just unbelievable person. And so it's been a fun 2 years to be with those guys, and we're going to miss them, but I definitely keep in touch with them, and I talk to those guys just weekly. So that was a great experience for all of us, I think.
You were one of the few coaches who stuck around during the coaching change that we just had, providing consistency for the athletes who are still here. What has that been like for you? Because this is an adjustment period, and this is not the adjustment period anyone thought it was going to look like on Zoom meetings and this and that. But from the time that you were able to spend actually with the new coaching staff, what has that been like for you?
Well, it's been great. I think, you know, Coach Aranda, I think when you look at somebody, who they are as a head coach, you start with who they hire, you know, and the people that they come in contact with, because it tells you two things. One, it tells you who they are as far as finding coaches, but more importantly, the type of coach that wants to come work for Coach Aranda tells you who he is. And so when you see a coach that's pulling Coach Fedora and, you know, Coach Roberts and you know, people from the LSU staff and coaches from the NFL and, you know, people that just coming from everywhere to come work for Coach Aranda, that really shows you that you're working for the right guy. So I've really enjoyed getting to know them and that. But, you know, Coach Fedora and I were laughing about it the other day. It's like, you know, when somebody takes over a program, it's very rare that they keep people and they keep guys on staff. Well, he kept Joey on defense and myself on offense. And it's like Coach Aranda saw the future because, I mean, Coach Fedora's never seen Charlie Brewer throw a pass in person. He's never seen Tristan Nebner run a ball in person. You know, he's never seen Tyquan Thornton catch a ball in person. So the only two people on the full-time staff that have are Joey and myself. And so I think it's been a benefit for us because we have seen them do things and we can give some insight into really what our strengths are, because out of spring, you really got to kind of, okay, here's who we are, here's what we can do, and we didn't get that spring. And so it's been a benefit, I think, to have us on staff to kind of help with that transition. And I know that, you know, we're excited to get running. And I think that, you know, we think it's definitely a positive. So.
No on-the-field spring practice, unfortunately. It would have been great if you'd been able to do that with a new staff this year. But give us a sense of what you have done with the players remotely.
Yeah, we've been Zoom. I can do anything you need to do on Zoom. I promise you that. So we every week we have been doing install meetings, and so we put together what would have been, if we started spring, our first 5 spring installs, and we've been through those, I guess, maybe 6 times now, to where we've installed it twice in person, and then we came back and did it twice online, and when the pandemic hit, and then now we're going through it, and we're almost doing what's called virtual practices on offense, to where we're signaling the play, we're communicating the play at the line of scrimmage, and then each player's talking about what they see, what they would do, and we're getting as much as you can get out of it as you possibly can. And I think it's been a benefit for my guys specifically, because they, you know, it challenges them to prepare, because they're in front of their whole team and they're having to say, hey, I'm going to have to do exactly this and step this way and do that, and it really holds everybody accountable. So I think we're doing the most we possibly can. I know we're all excited to really get out on the field and get the ball in our hands again, but it has been rewarding in the fact that I think our guys do have a good grasp of the X's and O's of what we're trying to do on offense and what we're trying to do on defense. So I think that's been one bright spot. We haven't done it physically, but mentally we're pretty locked in.
What does the tight end look like? What's the tight end role in a Larry Fedora offense?
Yeah, I think it's grown. I think that as you look at, you know, what we've done the last 3 years, that's an area of it that needs improvement, and we need somebody to step up in that room that can do a lot of things, and so that people, you know, can't game plan based on who's in the game and what they're doing. And so what that looks like is somebody that can spread out in space and be a weapon in the pass game, but also come into the box and be physical and set the tone in the run game and in pass protection. And, you know, you look at the teams that are successful, the Clemsons and the LSUs, all those guys were, you know, 11 personnel, which is, you know, 1 back and 1 tight end, and they're going up and down the field in that same personnel, and they're not having to change. And that's something that's hurt us for the last 2 years offensively, is we haven't had that guy that could spread out and do what we wanted him to do, and then come in the box and do what we asked him to do as well. And so, you know, that's a big thing in this offense. And we looked at the other day, as far as Coach Fedora, he's had some big time tight ends when he was at Oklahoma State and then North Carolina, and he's done some tremendous job at that position. So we've got some guys that need to step up in that role.
Let's go a little bit deeper into that room, talking about the personnel. How are they doing, and kind of where do you see them fitting?
Yeah, so it's a talented room, and I'm excited about it. The one thing that's in that room though is youth. It's everybody's got a lot of years left, and I'd probably say the guy that has the most amount of snaps will be Christoph Henley. He's going into his true junior year. He's played for us the last 2 years, and he's a guy that does everything exactly right and very detailed in what he does. Tyler Henderson missed the whole year last year due to an ACL. He was coming through spring ball and really, really coming on at the end of spring last year when he hurt his knee. So I'm excited to get him back out and really see what he can do. And he's a tremendous worker. Ben Sims was another one that we have high expectations for. And as you look at the season last year, the Oklahoma game when we lost when game day was here, and then the UT game, he was playing his best football and ended up getting hurt in practice. I think right before the Kansas game, and so he's a guy that I think really can be that weapon in the pass game as detached. And he's grown to be more physical and stronger and tougher, and he's a guy we're expecting big things from. And then the unknown would be Sam Snyder. He redshirted last year. Big, athletic, long athlete that can do a lot of things. He's had to put on weight. I think he's up to 226 right now, so he's gaining weight and doing what we want as far as is in the weight room and things like that. And then we have one new enrollee, which would be Drake Dabney, who's coming from Cy Ranch, and he can kind of do all the things I mentioned. So, in that room, it's going to be a great competition. That's what I'm excited about. There's no front runner. It's wide open. The best guy's going to play, and it's a big role in this offense, so we need them to step up.
Talked about the new staff Coach Aranda has put in place. That's the thing that I say every chance I get is this is a great staff. I mean, you look at the people that want to come here, that want to be at Baylor, that want to coach with Coach Aranda. How have you guys mashed, and how is that part of working together progressing so far?
Well, I think when you look – same thing. When you look at Coach Aranda, he hires based on character and who you are as a person first. And so it's been a great transition. There's no ego. That's what I love about it the most. There's guys that have been head coaches. There's been guys that have been coordinators that aren't coordinators. It's a room full of a lot of talented guys, but there's no ego in that room, and that starts from the top. Coach Aranda is an unbelievable football coach, but he's never going to be boisterous in saying that, and he's going to obviously let you coach and do what you got to do to get your position ready. But I've been impressed with everybody's just ability to adapt and open and be open to everything that's going on, and I've really learned a lot. There's guys. I mean, look at Coach Stewie, who's a defensive coordinator for Dallas Cowboys. Coach Fedora has been a head coach. Ron Roberts has been a head coach, and guys have been at LSU. Coach Munoz is a guy that I've known for a long time. He recruited my school at Magnolia West, and so just a lot of great individuals and a lot of knowledge, but no ego, and that's what I like about it.
Here for you, your family, and our community. Allen Samuels is open for business. Shop safely in our showroom. Our service and parts departments are open. There's free pickup and delivery for all service work, all safely sanitized when returned. We'll even deliver test drive vehicles to your home or office. Shop and buy totally online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com. We're ready to help. Always your friend in the car business. Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat.
Bentwood Realty is a full-service real estate firm with more than 70 high-achieving agents who desire to make a positive impact in their local communities. Their agents stay actively involved in all buying, selling, and investing real estate transactions to make sure their clients receive the utmost level of service. Established in 2011 by brokers Kim Galvan and Rick Hines, both proud Baylor alumni. Call Bentwood Realty today, 254-300-4800. They're at 601 Lake Air Drive in Waco and BentwoodRealty.com.
Now, back to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat.
Shawn Bell is our guest, Baylor's tight ends coach with Baylor Football. Hey, we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the Sikkim Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Catch us each week for a new Sikkim Podcast. And one of the things I thought it was a really good idea that you guys did was each position coach, you worked with another position. Say you as the tight end coach, maybe you worked with the defensive line or something like that. How did that go, and did you guys get out of that what you hope to?
Yeah, it's still ongoing, actually. It's neat. Every Friday morning, our Zoom meeting is a player get-to-know group. And so we split guys up by position. Sometimes it's just random, but you're very rarely with somebody that's in your position. I haven't had the tight ends yet because they hear from me all the time. So it gives you a chance. I've had the safeties, I've had the D-line, I've had the linebackers, and really get you a chance to build that team camaraderie you can't build when you're not in person. And I think I've really enjoyed it. I know the new coaches have probably gotten the most out of it because they're really getting to know the guys, and that's been a neat opportunity for us. We've also done it with our signees because our signees are out there, and they're waiting, they're chomping at the bit to get started, and so they also want to get to know the new coaches. So we've done it for I think when you're apart, you don't feel a part of the team. When you're so far away and everybody's spread out, and I think it's just been a great thing that Coach Aranda decided to do to help build this thing together. You're getting that team atmosphere as best you can, even though you're miles and states apart. It's been pretty fun.
Well, what would you say? I mean, you've been the player, not necessarily in this situation, but maybe this isn't something that would have ever happened. These players would have never known the coaches that aren't over their position group or on their side of the ball as well as they are maybe right now.
Yeah, you look at it, when I was a player, I know it was so offense-driven and defense-driven. It's like two teams on a team. It was like the offense does this and they do that, and the defense is over here. And I think that's what you can't have. I think you've got to have that team to where everybody knows, the offense is fighting for the defense is fighting for the offense. And I think things like this help that. And I think it obviously starts at the top. Coach Aranda is a guy that is going to be a team-first guy, a player-first guy. But that's where championship teams are born. You look at our success we had last year had a lot to do with that cohesion of a team atmosphere. And Coach Aranda is doing a great job as far as remotely as we are remotely right now of sticking that team together and having that cohesive unit, because that's what's going to take come August and September.
Well, we've got a date now, June 15th, when football student athletes are able to come back on campus, work not with you, not with the coaches, but work individually. That's nice, I think, to have that date. And to me, that's a real step forward, progressing toward having football in the fall.
Yeah, I know my guys are excited. I think, like you said, it has a date to where you know exactly when you have to be ready by. When you're I think just that timeline of, okay, I got exactly this amount of days till I report, till I have to be ready to do this and do that. I think that's big. And then obviously there's been that cloud. All these meetings, we've had all these meetings and all these opportunities, to teach the offense, the defense, but there's been that cloud out there of like, are we going to have football? And I know our guys haven't said it much, but it's been in the back of their mind because they're reading this or they're seeing that. And to have a little bit of that door starting to close has been very. I know my guys, tight ends specifically, are really excited about it, and they're just ready to get started. We got guys in my room that are hungry, that are coming off injury, that really were ready for the spring, but ultimately ready just to get back out there and show what they can do.
Well, now the spring has come to a close. They just finished finals, transitioning into the summer. Now you're able to kind of put a plan of action together, knowing that there is a date they're going to be here.
Yeah, and that's going on right now. I mean, as a staff, we're it's not your normal schedule, because you're going to have one schedule that if nothing would have changed, that's what we would do this summer. Well, now everything's changed because we haven't been in contact, we haven't been around them, we haven't been working them out. We've got to transition them from where they're at right now to being the best football player they can be week one against Ole Miss. And so all those plans are still ongoing and still changing, but at least we have that date to where we know, okay, this is where we're going to start, and this is the plan to build them back to where they need to be. So I think it's a unique opportunity. I passed Coach Aranda in the hall the other day. I said, when you took over your first head job, who would have thought? I mean, who would to deal with this and no spring ball and then the pandemic and Zoom meetings and all this? I think he was laughing. We had a good laugh about it, but he's handled it the right way and done it the right way.
It's going to be exciting, whatever form it takes when you guys can get back together, get practice going, and then put it on the field. Hopefully September 5th, is when that first game is. It's going to be exciting when we get to that point.
Yeah, I think so. I think our guy, like I said, every Friday meeting that I've had with players, every one of them said, Coach, when I was there, sometimes you go, I got a meeting at 3, or, oh man, I got this class, or I got to go lit, and they're all just, when can I do that again? They're craving, the hunger is there. So I see a hunger about our team that I know has been created by this. So you look at there's so many people that focus on the negative. What I look at is, we've got guys that are hungry to be back in meetings, they're hungry to be back to work, and they're hungry for this football season. So we're expecting big things from them.
Well, I know we've said it, we've mentioned it in a couple of different podcasts, but people just missing seeing other people. They find themselves, they took for granted X, Y, and Z, and now they're just really ready to get back. And you're kind of saying the same thing, but about sports. And this is at a time where they get to kind of pause and realize, take advantage of all the different opportunities that you have. What kind of benefit as an athlete? Because that's not necessarily something they just get in the routine of things. So what might be a silver lining or a bright spot for this?
Yeah, I think, when everybody's playing career's over, they always look back and they think, well, I wish I would have done this or I wish I'd have done that. Well, these guys kind of have a pause in their career to where they can really look and say, well, this is what I've got to improve. And so I think that, when does time ever slow down? And this is probably as close to it's ever been to slowing down for these guys. And so, like I said, I'm telling you, there's guys that you wouldn't believe what they're saying. I mean, they're, Coach, I'd give anything to be in another hour and a half meeting again. I'd do anything to run another gasser. I mean,
you can remind them of that when they get back on the field.
But it really, it's just a hunger. It's just a hunger to get back to work. And I think, like you said, I think they know that, I think time, you're always worried about, when it's over, what it's going to look like. So I think it's maybe kind of refresh guys and make them more energized. I think it's going to be a benefit for us. I really do.
All right, and we have kind of a way to wrap all this up, staple here for our podcast. But we've talked about, time kind of pausing, coming to a screeching halt in the spring, and now we're kind of taking those steps. Hopefully, what's out of this, we have a date for the football athletes to come back. But when everything does kind of get back to whatever the new normal looks like, what are you looking forward to most when Baylor athletics return?
Well, I think a lot, obviously, but I think the biggest thing is this program is so special. I think what our administration has built from top to bottom is so special. You look at what we were doing when this hit. I think just the desire to put Baylor back where we were headed, and I think it's going to happen. Our volleyball season, when they hit the ground running us, and then into basketball season, and then transferring to spring sports. I'm just excited to Baylor really reach their full potential. I know that Mac and his staff are hard at work to make sure everything's all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. But I'm just excited, not just for football, but all sports, because there's so many talented coaches, so many talented student athletes in this program that have championships ahead of them, and I want them to reach all those goals. And I know at this university that's possible. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, great to have you with us. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing, and glad you're a part of Baylor football heading into this year.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Shawn Bell, Baylor's tight ends coach, for being with us. We look forward to football in the fall, whether it's September 5th or 6th or whenever that might be, and we appreciate Shawn and his time today. For Brooke Bednarz, I'm John Morris. Thanks for being with us on this week's Sick'em Podcast. We'll talk to you again next week.
You've been listening to the Sick'em Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at alansamuelsdcj.com. The Sick'em Podcast has been a production of Baylor Athletics.